Welcome to the Indira Life Show. I'm Indira Diol. What if there is another way? Another way to experience your life. From the day we're born, we're taught how to succeed, how to solve problems, and how to keep moving forward. But almost no one teaches us how to live. A way where your worries no longer define your days. Where your life isn't led by fear, where your decisions come from clarity instead of pressure, and where the life you know you're here to live begins to unfold from within you. Most of us believe that if we could just find the right answers, life would finally feel different. But what I've discovered is the answers to the life you want have never been outside of you. That's the conversation we're here to have, because one conversation can change how you experience your life. Welcome to the Indira Life Show. There is another way. Let's begin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat, and I am the very honored co-host of this show. And Indira and I have been working on this, putting it together, and we are finally at the place now where you are going to get to hear and experience the talents and gifts of, Indira. And you're going to get really familiar with the words Indira Life. That's what the show is, but it's more than that. It's a way that Indira has taken a body of work and is helping so many countless people out there learning about the mind, learning about our lives, learning about what will guide us to the places we want to go and will help us get out of the places we don't really know how we got there. Indira, it's exciting. Today, we're really going to take on the conversation about another way. And what I mean by that is, this episode is to really look at, what are we looking at? Is there another way? Is there another way? And especially, is there another way if, in fact, what we're looking at is how best to use our mind? So welcome to your debut episode. Are you excited?
I'm so excited. I'm thrilled. Very, very looking forward to this message for today's time that I feel is so critical. And I am so here to let our listeners find out the role of the mind and how there is another way that doesn't get them stuck.
Yeah. So what I love about this episode title is Mind Chatter. There is another way. And so let's have a conversation, if we could, about the mind. And, the way you approach it, because so many studies, so many statistics on how many thoughts we have a day, all of that, to the point where we don't even know we're having them. Right. I was sitting here earlier today and I'm actually writing a letter to, I think it's about 13 Congress people who made a bold statement about something that's going on in sports. And so I'm writing a letter to them and I had to investigate what was in my mind. Why am I writing this letter? Well, what I realized is while I commend what they're doing, my mind took me in a direction that says, or asked the question, are you really getting at the root issue here? Are we really getting at the human behavior, at the human things that are going on, and what we find is that so often we don't. So let's talk about the mind from where you sit.
Yes. And I'm glad about that example you just shared, because what I heard is you actually paused somewhere in your like commitment to take this action and actually got centered in another place. And I heard that in your speaking. See, what I discovered is that we have misidentified the mind and its thoughts as our truth and our reality. The thing about the mind is that it's a very powerful mechanism that we operate from. But what we're unaware of in how we live our daily life is that it's always evaluating, telling us what to think, how to feel. Somebody sends a text and you read it and it evokes something in your mind and you are not there anymore. The mind has just defined how to feel. Forget a text. Somebody says something and their tone or the way their face looks just totally like pulled you into some past experience. So, what I've discovered is that while we can see so many things about the mind and mindfulness and quieting the mind and observing our thoughts and all of that, that fundamentally, until we can recognize that our thoughts, our mind and its thoughts and what is telling us is open for question, or we don't have to follow it every time. And when we do that, we open up another space, just like you just shared. When you're sending that letter or text or email, you got like, wait, what am I really committed to here? What's the human element? And I'm saying that came to you because you, for a moment, created a space from, oh yes, I got to send this out.
Yeah.
This is something I got to get to those people.
Yeah. And I had to really, what's the right word? Help me out here. It's like I had a mental and emotional pause
Yes.
that I took, because there's a way to respond and react to something. And then there's the way that I want to react and respond. And, it doesn't matter what your vibe is in life, right? There are some people that are passionate about baking recipes, right? And I mean, this is true. And they watch a recipe on television and they see something on social media and they realize, wait a minute, that's not the way you do the recipe, because in their mind, they've got something. Now, let's take that a little bit deeper in life, right? Behavior of two people together. What is the dynamic of that? The things that go on between your boss and your peers. It doesn't matter what it is. The mind shows up for all of it, and we do not realize that.
Well, it is the only thing we have. I'm having a conversation with my husband yesterday, and today I noticed my mind wants to evaluate the situation, go to my past about him, tag him, have him become this person in my head based on 29 years of living with him. And we don't realize that we take that into our jobs, into our relationships, into parenting. Where the thing about what I bring to your life is that you can release the mind, meaning you can choose to let go of those thoughts. And it's when you choose to let go of those thoughts that something else shows up. You're in a meeting at work and you always feel like you don't ever get heard. Now, you've had years of that experience in that job. It is a reality now. You show up a particular way, you act a particular way, you respond a particular way, you have emotions, you feel like, I need to get out of this job. This isn't even like, they're not even honoring me for who I am. And when you release those thoughts, what happens is they're no longer there, because the mind never stops. It's always assessing, evaluating, telling us what we think and how we feel. And it's this dialogue that we can't ever turn off. And so in my practice, you actually learn how to release it.
Yeah. And part of this, let's just talk about this for a minute, because in the practice that you're talking about, when you say in my practice, it's the work that you do with other people. So let's be clear. Yeah. And and this topic of the show really is mind chatter. Is there another way? Well, yes. We're talking about there is another way. You and I had situations. Mine is very real because in the process of this show, and you and I talked about this before. right? Where we said, we don't know what's going to show up on the day of the show. We don't know what things in front of us that's going to be representation for what we talk about.
Yes.
And it's very real for me today. And I was looking over and preparing for a show today. And that's when I thought, I got to hit the pause button on this, because I don't want to write another complaining letter. I want what I write to be based on whatever research is available within an hour framework that I could pull together. But I don't want to do the job of the Congress people that initially wrote the letter. What I'm trying to say to them, and this is important, because if you don't say it in a professional, organized, fact-based way, people do not pay attention to you, especially if you're these 10 or 12 Congress people that signed a letter put out by the DOJ as a warning sign to the Women's Basketball Association, which is unprecedented. So I hit the pause button and I said, Pat, you got to put your research Pat hat on. You've got to step back and break things down. Not just emotionally from what you see, but factually, what are you seeing? And can you lay it out so that you could provide support to these people that are extremely busy to see a bigger picture than they initially pinpointed?
Yes.
But if we could at least learn to do that, then something happens, right? Because what would I have had to release, Indira, in order for me to hit that pause button?
Well, there's a couple of things you said, and I want to speak to it in a way that I can hear how the version of the mind wants to always be in control. Because one of the ways the mind operates is it's always going to control how we think, feel, and respond and react to whatever's occurring. Now, there's something you said in what you shared, and I want to distinguish it because you said factual, and I'm going to say that's a dimension of your mind and what it's good at. Because
and a perception.
Yes, like you would. But then you said, I want it to be where it moves them to a different place. That is what I'm going to call the self part of it, the part that's not driven by what the mind knows how to do. And if you stay there, what happens is words come to us, phrases come to us, things come to say that you'll go, wow, where did that come from? I would never say that to this group of people because from my mind, I don't even think they care. Like, what the hell? They don't even care that I'm sending this to them. But when you come from that place that you are releasing, I hear you releasing, and you're going to another place because there's a part of you that's like, wait a second, I want what I say to have that result that I'm committed to. I don't want to just send something out and it falls in a pile. And that space that you spoke to is where you'll get access to what to say. And the thing about releasing the mind, which is very deliberate, it's a very conscious and deliberate action to say that my mind is going to keep driving how I should respond and react in this situation. And the more I release it, the more new thoughts come to me, new views, new perspective of how to see a situation. So I'm going to flip back to, I'm, getting dressed today and I had this conversation with Paul yesterday and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I got this flood of all of the amazing things this human being has brought into my life that flooded me, that literally brought a new reality into my life. For in that moment to see who's over there as my partner. For you, it's seeing this group of people like they care, like they're really interested. While the mind is going to say, I need to send this letter because they don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, at the same time, it was also getting in touch with what I'm really passionate about. And really, what is it I'm trying to do? Because, first of all, we bring our experiences with us. So let's talk about that,
Yes.
right? So, this idea of there is another way. Well, let's get
Yes.
back to that. There is
Yeah.
another way. That comes from a certain idea from you. You know, there is another way. That's part of what you do. That's part of the opening door. There is another way. Now, because I looked at this and prepared it before I hit the send button, I asked, Pat, is there another way?
Mm.
And in that moment, not only did I get an answer,
Mm.
but I got something else the way you described. So
Mm.
let's talk about situations like you just had with your amazing partner, all right? And you know, me looking at who I am in the world, and one,
Mm.
because let's go through this.
Mm.
What happened in our lives? What happened in your life to
Mm.
make you think about that? What happened to
Mm.
you?
Mm.
Because on the outside, we show up here and whatever the credentials
Yes.
are, whoever we are, but there are things that happen to us. And
Mm.
that was for me the question I asked that
Mm.
changed my opening sentence, my
Mm.
opening two paragraphs in this letter.
Mm. Mm. Wow,
What
that's
about
amazing.
you?
That's amazing. Well, I finished as I headed off to college to venture into this world who that could be have me be all of who I am. I quickly learned that no matter what I accomplished and how much I did and how much I made, there was this feeling of not being fulfilled, like something's missing, and I don't think we pause long enough to get that feeling up to the surface. But you know, there's this experience. I For me, it was a little like, you know, there's a donkey or the horse with the carrot in front of it, and no matter where you go, you never get to where you want to go to. Like, if I think about us as human beings, there's always this thing we're getting to. We're getting to the right job. We're getting to be the best parent. We're getting to the relationship we want. We're always getting to it. And it was just exhausting. And I was like, I know I'm not born to just live this life to be like getting to somewhere and then I'm just going to die. So the question for me was, who am I and why am I here? And that's what pursued this there is another way. And it was through many disciplines and reading and looking and getting into transforming lives and everything. Then I said, you know, it's not out in the physical world. I've gone there, I've read books, I've done this. And it doesn't mean I didn't help me. I grew, I evolved. But it was then that I had a very specific experience that where my mind and all of its thoughts was not present at all. And in that moment, there was a space of everything I needed to know in this moment for this situation, for whatever is occurring in the now, was an opening to like new thoughts, new views, different actions that was illogical from the mind, was didn't make sense for my mind because my mind was like in its own world of how it would assess and relate and use my past. And that is where the separation came. Like, wow, there is another way. And so from that moment, I began to connect, listen, trust, and act from that part of me. And the results you get show up differently because you're not being informed by the way the mind works, which is great. It's a great tool, but it's not who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I mean, when you and I come to this realization, and I have to talk to the audience because you see what Indira and I are talking about is available to all of us. What have I discovered in my life, Indira? What I've discovered in my life, sometimes I'm not a good reflection of myself. And what that means is I often, throughout my entire life, I have worked with other people, other groups to help me see what I don't see. Why would I do that because for some reason, an innate part of me is hungry to continue to grow. I've had that with me all my life, from, graduating college and can't write a sentence. All right. But and not my doctorate. My doctorate, I had to learn how to write a sentence. But what I'm trying to say is, what are we searching for? What is it? And you and I both had to look at a situation today, but let's imagine people, right? Living life. But are we really? Now, I want to ask you about this. Because after I wrote this amazing, really long letter, I researched how to upload it to send it to the 10 or 12 representatives that originally signed the Department of Justice, whatever they did. I didn't send it. After checking it, writing it, loving it, I didn't send it. And I thought, did I not send it because I want to make sure and read it again? Or is there something I'm afraid of? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see? Because.
So what is it?
Well, you're going to have to wait to the end of the show for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because, what I think is it's a combination of both.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why, because, all my life I've done things very immediate. People say impulsively, no, it's not that. But when I make a decision to stand up for rights of people, I'm out there, right? Growing up, I had a mom that had us out on the street marching for rights for people of color. I mean, this was something I grew up with. You understand? I went to Plainfield High School, right? If you see my high school reunion pictures, they are shocking. I'm sitting over there with Gwen and the entire Black people of color community, and the entire right side, all white people. And, I didn't think about it until Gwen commented on that. So, I grew up with speaking up for rights for different groups of people. It's just in my bones. This is that letter. But for some reason, something about what I was about to do tried to stop me. Now, here's my question for you. Mind chatter cannot believe that the mind chatter we have from doing certain things in life is on our team. But we don't know. We don't know how to make the distinction. Did I not hit the button and send that letter out on X and wherever else I was going to send it? It's a really good letter. I'm sitting here today. My intuition was, don't rush to send it out. You've got a show coming up. You want to be present for the show. Go back and see if you left anything out. See, that's very different. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm saying, was that really the truth, Pat?
What you said is perfectly on the button, and I'm going to say what it is. And you use the word intuition. Now, you could say that the self part that I speak to, we could say it's intuitive, but I tend not to use that word because we have a lot of explanation from the mind about what intuition is. I like to say that it's when you've allowed yourself to let go of any thought that the mind might have about who to be in that moment, right? But it's great what you're saying, because right away, then your mind came in and with thoughts of, well, Pat, did you not send that out because you feel like it, and that you should have, but you didn't, it just comes in, right? The thing is, when people do a connection through my practice, the moment you come out of it, it's like the mind's right there. Like, let's go just get Mexican food. We don't need to think about this right now.
Right.
And so we never shift out of the mind and its chatter.
Yeah.
The chatter never stops. And the practice of releasing the mind you cultivate yourself as a human being that has cultivated a whole new way of how to be in a moment, that instead of this immediate response from the mind, you can tune in, which is what you did, to another part of you and start to trust it.
Yeah. And, let's get back to the question which you probe, and let's get back to why we're doing this show. This is the first show of many we'll do together because, part of what comes out of this, especially when, this show is to bring the question into real life,
Yes,
right? Because
yes,
we're
yes,
people. We're not
yes.
an AI. We're dealing with stress, relationships, decisions, family, fear. But you have said everything changed because I never stopped asking one question. Who am
Yeah.
I and why am I here? There has to be another way.
Yes.
Now, what I didn't tell you, and we'll talk about this when we come back from break, is how does the mind create life we experience? Because I want to talk to everybody listening to the show.
Mm.
Maybe you feel trapped. That's a good term.
Hmm.
Trapped. It's a really great term. What do I mean by trapped? Dang, this relationship I'm in, he won't even put down the toilet seat, whatever that feels like for you.
Mm.
Or, oh my God, I got to go into that job again. I
Mm.
hate my boss. All right, that. Or, oh my gosh, got to go to soccer, got to go to basketball, got to go to swimming, whatever that is that you're playing through. And then here's the one thing, this is the message, right? What if you tell yourself, I'm never going to be able to change it? What if you say something like, this is what was said to me, by the way. Pat, you're just one person. You writing a letter and splashing your reputation all over the internet. Do you think that's really going to help the WNBA situation? Well, we're going to take a short break. How do we not pick up and project other people's
Mm.
adaptations of their own
Mm.
fear on us?
Mm. Mm.
But we'll also ask, what the heck is the mind actually doing that most of us never even notice?
Mm.
Who was in control of me hitting that button? Was it actually me? Who
Mm.
was it? Indira,
Mm.
before we go to break, how do people find out about you? Tell us about your books, all of the above.
Mm. Yes. My website is indiralife.com, and my book is on Amazon. It's called You, a Spiritual Being on a Spiritual Journey. And yes, that book is a really great opening to discover more depth about this conversation.
Awesome. Let's take a short break. And again, when we come back, I'm telling you, we're just warming up. Get ready to discover what most people do not realize about their thoughts and
Mm.
about how those thoughts drive an action that we don't even recognize we
Mm.
have taken.
Mm.
And even if we take it, we cannot even remember why we did it.
Mm.
Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Tired of feeling exhausted as a parent? I would love to help you with a new vision for yourself that is focused on intentional wellness parenting. My name is Aurelie Cormier, and I have over 40 years' experience with complex cancer patients. I offer consultations, coaching, and educational programs for parents who want to boost their health and reduce risk of disease, especially cancer. For more information, go to aureliecormier.com.
Hey, everybody. Oh, my goodness. We have got talk radio for all of it.
Really, thank you for blazing the trail for women in talk radio and just being such an inspiration to me and so many other people. What you're doing is so awesome. And, you know, without people like you there to like really step out of the box and go for it, I don't know if someone like me would have ever ended up here, but I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. You're one of my major inspirations.
Luvology is where your body remembers what your soul never forgot. I work with men and women who are often at the edge of midlife, who are done with surface level living. People who've built the life but still feel numb, who ache for something deeper, more presence, more truth, more touch.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat. Welcome back to the Indira Life Show. Now, look, I get to take these journeys, but this idea, this message, this teaching comes from a person who lives this, helps us understand it. And I want all of you to hold on to this as you understand the Indira Life Show and more about Indira. What I want you to remember are these 4 words, not just in this show, but as we move forward. Because today we're talking about mind chatter. There is another way. We're talking about what happens when the mind takes over or maybe doesn't take over. But the 4 words I want you to remember are connect, listen, trust, and act. Indira, before we get rolling here, because the next part of this is very, very important. You know, it talks about the mind and creating our own experience of life, right? But before we even do that, I think it's important for people to know this is the work you do in the world, and you work with people to help us all understand, as you and I were talking about during the break, there is a reason that I didn't hit that send button, and a very good one that I discovered. But we don't always see it closely. So how do people find out more about you? How do they work with you? How do they get the books?
Great. So my website is indiralife.com. And guys, if you go to my website, you'll see my membership. You'll see you can sign up for my community. And also, you can leave me a message. Anything in this show that touches you, you have a question about, I want you to send it to me. I have worked for the last 2 decades and more with hundreds and thousands of people, from parenting to grief to entrepreneurs to health and well-being. The fact is that when you take on this practice, you discover how to let go of those thoughts that keep you stuck and really resolve your challenges. Also, my book is on Amazon, You, a Spiritual Being on a Spiritual Journey, and it gives you the whole practice and the whole shift from mind to self.
So as we think about that and as we take a closer look here, and what I love is always the idea of peeling back the onion. I always like that. But, you know, let's talk about the onion for a minute.
Yes.
You know, my mom used to always say about that, peeling back the onion. But then she would turn around to us girls and she'd say, girls, no matter how far you peel it back, it's still an onion, right? It's not like peeling a banana, right? But you get what she's saying. So part of this is she was giving us an experience. And you had to know my mom. When she would do that metaphor of the onion, she'd be having an onion in her hand. And you'd watch her slowly peeling that onion back and telling you the philosophy about peeling an onion and how it's like life. Even though you're bawling your eyes out because the onion is so strong, she is still doing the onion thing. But it really points to this thing about creating our experience of life, right? But what happens? What happens? What happened that completely changed your understanding, you personally?
Wow. After a decade of or more of continually, I have to tell you, those questions were not random. They were deep in my soul. I could not exist if those questions weren't answered because life did not make sense to me. It's not like I'm going to get married and have children and make money and then I'll be happy. And there's so much written about happiness and all of that stuff. And what happened is I got that I am not my mind and its thoughts. Now, the difference in this is that you don't engage the mind with my practice. You totally let go of everything your mind knows about a situation. That's the difference. So when I started to live my life from myself, because I am not my mind, I am not those thoughts. When I see my sister and my mind's like, oh, why did she have to say that to me? Oh, I don't really, oh, she doesn't understand me. And I can release that in a second or be with her from compassion and love. That has brought such a depth to my life. So living that way became like breathing now. Like, wow, you mean I can tune into that part of me that's not my thoughts and trust what it's saying and act on it? And that is where my life changed. And I started to do that 20 years ago, and it has altered every situation. I was never going to be with another human being, and I'm now married for 29 years. I would never be doing the work I'm doing. And I always had this feeling of like, this is who I am, but I would never show up for myself. I would never be like, I remember I used to call my dad and say, oh, here I am. I moved to Florida. Nobody in my family would call me, and I'm always calling everybody. And, I moved through that part of my life that if I don't hear from my siblings, it means that they don't care about me. But those thoughts, they stay around in our head and they become our reality. And we don't have friends and we don't reach out and reach to people we care and love about because there's a thought like, well, if they're not calling me, I'm not going to call them. And then I get from myself, call them, and I take the action. And that's how I've lived. And that's why I see that we are all human beings. We all have a self. We've just never identified with that part of us as who we are.
Part of this too is these conversations are so important because, and by the fact that we opened this up by giving real life examples. You gave an example of your day. I gave an example of my day. And, I can think about times in my life where my mind ran the entire show. All of it. Just what you just said. I'm not going to call them. They don't call me. 5-year passes, 10-year passes, 20 years pass. And it's like, why are you going, what? Do you even remember why you didn't call them? And, it's fascinating because I was talking to a friend of mine not too long ago who a mutual friend of ours passed away and we didn't even know it. Hello. Right?
I do this thing where I call, and when people work with me or in my app, which I'm going to have out soon, where you scan, what I call you scan your life. You look from the part of you that's not the mind, because the mind's busy telling you what you should do today, how you should act, how you should feel, what are the emotions about this and that and the other. And those emotions are real, so it anchors down the mind and how it works in our life. But what it does is it robs us of love and compassion and empathy, because the mind is the survival driven part of us. And it really is the energy of separate, because everything is a threat. Like, look, if I'm going to open up my heart to you and you're not going to care, I'm going to shut it down. So that's the way the mind is designed, because it's designed to protect us, but it's not designed to have us live as who we are. So what it does is show us all the things that's not okay, all the things that doesn't work. if you look at your day at any given moment, you're not present to the 10 things that just happened to you in the last 48 hours. That was amazing. You're only present to the 10 things that are screwed up. You know what I mean? So the mind works that way. There's nothing wrong with it. We've just misidentified the source of our aliveness and life working the way we want it to in those situations. I always say when the source from which your life changes, your experience of life shifts.
Yeah.
So, my siblings don't call me like any way, but I am full of their love because I don't have that thought in my head anymore.
Well, I think this is so important because, people ask me, why do I keep doing the show? Okay, that's one of the questions. Right? But it made me think about why they asked me that question, because I don't think people understand what I get out of it.
Mm.
I have always been someone who had a very lack of understanding about who I was from the very young age to who I could possibly become. Some people have that. Some people have the parents, some people, I don't know, whatever people have. So for me, I always wanted to learn more. I want to learn more. From the very day that I got spanked for going across the street when I wasn't supposed to at age 5 and hanging out with my sister's boyfriends over there, like she's 12 years older than me, from that day of not understanding what's the problem. I mean, honestly, I'm 5 years old and I walk in, I got a spanking for this thing. It's the only time my dad took his belt off and used it on me. And I just looked at him and said, I'm paraphrasing now, I don't get it, dude. What's the problem? Like, why would you go through that length and just say to me, you're not supposed to go over there, don't go. Like, my sister's over there. What the bleep so I kept saying to her, I don't understand. Why is Chicky over there? She's older.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, those kinds of things in my childhood and also some other things, I didn't understand myself very well. So I wanted to know more. So when people ask me why I keep doing the show, one, I really want us to help people change themselves and therefore change the world. That is first and foremost for me. I grew up with a stepmom that believed in that. But I also want to talk to you about this. The greatest moments in time I've ever had, and they have been pivotal and life-saving, were the times I heard nothing. Now, I don't know how to describe that. Do you understand what I mean?
I do.
But yet, I have had to have heard something.
Well, this is how I want to say what you just said. And I want to
good. Help me out
I want to speak to something you said first, because I feel it's an opportunity for our listeners to understand what Connect, Listen, Trust Act gives you. When you spoke about your dad, you could say that your awareness to understand that your sister was there and so you were there made the connection. Now, you could say your dad is on the mind side of what's right and what's wrong, and you should not do that, right?
Exactly.
But had he been able to let go of that thought and be in a space of no thought, and I'll speak to that in a moment, he may have heard, oh, she went because her sister was there. Now, that is what I want to use right now to show how parenting shifts when you parent from what I call the self part of you versus being driven by the mind's experience of the situation. Because I'm saying that as a parent, I could, in a moment of no thought, because I've learned how to release my mind when I'm reactivated by something, I might find myself giving my child a hug when every book I read said put them in the corner or sit down or send them to some place where they need to understand the situation. I don't know what I'll get. And that's why I am not somebody that you come to that I give you and tell you what to do. I guide you to connect to that part of you. And then, so that's one thing. And I parenting is a big one for me because this for me is the era we're in where we've exhausted the mind telling us what to do, how to think, what is true, what is real. And we when we misidentify that, we live feeling stressed, upset, annoyed, frustrated, like we're all doing our very best, but we never really get to another place. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you said those moments where there was no thought. In Connect, which is the first step of my practice, you get to that space of no thought because it is in no thought that everything exists. Because imagine that for the mind, it could never be in no thought because it knows everything. If I walk into a room, my mind scans it in a nanosecond and lets me know if it's okay, where's what, recognition. The way the mind works, you could never be in a no thought of the mind. So, in no thought of the mind, which is my practice, because you have to release the mind to get access to this part of you that I call the self, which is it's in the now. It does not operate from anything that, given it's not operating from the mind, it takes that situation, hence your dad, for example, and it brings a new experience of what's occurring. And you start to see the situation from a totally different realm that could never exist from the mind because the mind is bringing all this stuff already. You know your child, you know how you grew up, you know how your parents taught you, you know what the things that your other parents tell you, all that is coming in, how you're going to interact with that child in that moment. So when you get to that space of no thought and your child is there and you are there, or in any situation, I'm just using child for example, you're called for to connect to that child from their space and energy that elevates both of you. And that's what's different. And that's what no thought gives you.
And you see, this is what this show is about, because for those of you out there, let me just give you an idea of some of the things we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to comment on that, what my dad told me years later about that deal. We're going to be talking about, think about these questions. How do your relationships begin changing when someone lives from the mind, right? And more from the self? How do decisions become different? What happens to fear? I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Does life become easier, or do we simply begin meeting life at a different place? How does this change the way someone responds to stress, conflict? See, these are the questions. How does this change your own life? How does this change? What is it about us that learns this differently? Like for me, what am I learning about this letter? How many versions of this did I go through in my mind that, Pat, you're the owner of the network, you're going to put something out there, blah, 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 blah. I am going to put it out there because what I observe going on is unconscionable to me. But here's what my dad said. I said to my dad later, Dad, remember that time you hit me with the belt? He said, yes. I said, remember, I never understood why you did that. He said, that's right, you never did. And I said, tell me what was going through your mind. Because I said, Chicky was over there. He said, it wasn't about your sister. We trust your sister. We didn't trust you. See, the very fact that you would run across the street and go out there, just abandon everything we told you. And then if you think about it, Pat, every day of your life, you were like that. You always pushed the edge. And my dad said to me, do you remember when you came to us and you wanted to join the Air Force at age 17? I said, yes, I remember that clearly because I thought I could fly. Do you remember I wouldn't sign it? I says, yes. He said, because I couldn't imagine you with a gun. And so this was my dad's perception of me and the kind of kid I was, very out there, willing to climb up on the monkey bars, not really worrying about the
Mm.
things my dad worried about.
Mm.
But then he shared something deeply personal. He said, I wasn't really just worried about you. He said, your mom was very sick. And it was your mom's heart that would break if something happened to you on my watch.
Mm. Mhm.
Now, a gazillion years later, he talked about that. But part of that, does it change my thinking? Did it change the way I looked at my dad? Well, to be honest with you, I never really held that against him. When years go by, because there's something about my personality that really lets go of a ton of
Yes.
crap.
Yes.
It's just my personality. So in the last minutes yet, this is a great opening show. I would love to know your personal message. I want people to know what you want to leave us with and how we can work with you.
Great. So listen, I'm here for you. I'm here for you guys in your life. Listen, I know life it is tough. I mean, let's just face it. We live with stress in the background that we just tolerate, put up with, things not working. We are stressed and we deal with these things like that's just life. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. And if anything in today's show touched you at all, send me an email. Go to IndiraLife.com. Tell me what you're dealing with. Tell me what you need. Tell me what you want to hear on my shows. Go to Amazon and get my book. Sign up for my community. Just whatever it is, I'm here for you. I'm here for your life. I'm in the trenches with you, and I know what it's like to make that shift.
Give us your website one more time and tell people how they can contact you. And then everybody is going to know that they're going to wait for the app to come out too, right?
Yes. So go to IndiraLife.com. And one of the things you want to do is send me an email. Let me know if you want to be on the list for the app. It's going to be out very shortly. And then just let me know what on the Amazon, just put my name in, Indira Diol, and my book will come up. And guys, get a copy and start reading it. It has audio links that make that switch for you. It's like a workbook, so it'll help you with whatever you're dealing with also.
Thank you so much, Indira. We'll see you all next time. And remember, mind chatter.
There is another way.
There is another way. We'll see you all next time. Take care.
Before we leave today, I'd like you to carry one question with you. What if there is another way? Not someday, not for someone else, but for you. We'll keep exploring that question in all areas of life, one conversation at a time, because one conversation can change how you experience your life. Thank you for joining me on the Indira Life Show. There is another way. I'll see you next time.